So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Deep Dive Podcast, Aloha Pools and Spas Deep Dive Podcast. I'm John Watts, your host, along here with Brad Cook, owner of Aloha Pools and Spas. And who do we have today, Brad?
Hey, John, we have Dan Holstein from Oxygen Pools, and we're just going to talk about some of the things he sells. And Dan and I'll let Dan tell you how long we've known each other, how far we go back, and but Dan is currently at the Atlantic City Pool and Spa Show, which is one of the biggest trade shows in North America. There's a national show that is maybe arguably as big or sometimes a little bigger and sometimes a little smaller, I think. So Atlantic City show is always a good show for people in the pool and spa industry. And Dan, you've had a good show, I guess, right?
The show's been okay. It's a little chilly here, and so I know you guys got some weather in Tennessee down there. Well, we got about a foot up this way, and so that's the risk you run with a trade show in New Jersey at the Jersey Shore in January.
Always has been.
And so,
yeah.
And every third or fourth year, you get a good snowstorm that hits right as the show happens. And so, I don't blame you for not wanting to come to this one. This is not necessarily the ideal vacation spot in January for the pool business, but it is one of the best shows that we have now.
Right.
The national show rotates from Vegas to Orlando, and that's where I saw you last. Brad was out there, and that's always a good show. But this one consistently has a really good presence. A lot of exhibitors. A lot of people come to this show, so
a lot of pools in the Northeast.
It's always one of the best. A lot of people in the Northeast, a lot of pools in the Northeast, a lot of pool professionals, service guys, builders, retailers live up this way, and so it draws quite a bit. I mean, people from Ohio, Virginia, so it's really, in my opinion, one of the best shows.
And Tennessee every now and then. I know some of my friends in Tennessee will go to it. I'll go to it every now and then. Typically, if I have to miss the national show, I'll be sure to go to the Atlantic City show. And I seldom miss the national show, but sometimes I will go to both, but very, very seldom. But I like Atlantic City. I like the show as well. Well, so do you remember, Dan, how long have we known each other at this point?
So I mean, I think it was early 2000s, probably in the 2002, 2004 neighborhood where we first met each other. I was a lifelong pool guy, just as many people in the pool industry are. And so I was, in my 20s, and my father and I had a company called Smart Pool, and we were making lights and robotic pool cleaners and, stuff that your Aloha was buying, as long as you're a group with the dealers you're friendly with. Right. And so I was presenting at some of the national meetings to you guys. And so I believe that's the first time we probably met each other and ran into each other, but we've known each other for many, many years since then. And so, I started Oxygen Pools about 10 years ago. And, I think presenting to your meetings that you guys have every year was probably when we became much friendlier with each other. That was, a little older, a little bit more seasoned, and having a manufacturing company myself here, I think we could talk to each other a little bit more business to business owners than I was as an employee and a salesperson. So it's been quite a while. It's been many years, and it's been a great run of friendship for sure. So I really appreciate you.
And to that point, when somebody goes from, growing up in the business like you have, and then moves into the, I guess almost like, you study the business, and then you find a niche, or you find a need, and then you go through all the motions. You got contacts at this point. So tell us a little bit about kind of what you saw, and then what, and how that all evolved. Like how did that whole process start?
Right. So, I mean, I kind of, to give a little, I mentioned I started in the industry with my father as a manufacturer. So I kind of always had that entrepreneurial spirit, working for other people was never really my main joy in life. And so what happened through the years as working in the industry is I realized there was a niche or a missing gap in some part of our industry. And it has to do with treating water without chlorine. I mean, so there's a segment of our market where people just are not interested in swimming in chlorine, and there's alternatives out there.
Yeah, that's a big market. People who don't want chlorine water. That's like a necessary.
Right, and there's a variety of reasons, and there's a variety of reasons why people don't want chlorine. They're used to going to a public pool that has a real heavy chlorine smell. There's skin allergies, asthma allergies. I mean, so there's a lot of legitimate reasons for it. And at the about 9-10 years ago when I started this, there was a huge and it's still growing segment of the market that uses salt. And so salt's chlorine. And so I saw an opportunity where salt's very expensive. It really is chlorine. And so I saw an opportunity with ozone and a chemical program around ozone to start putting together a product to give homeowners really a chlorine-free pool. And so, as you realize a niche and as you start to explore what people have on the market and what people are doing currently, I found a little niche with an ozone system and a chemical program, and then with that spirit of entrepreneurship, I started sourcing all the products and doing testing and running pools with it for a few years, and then bringing it to market and going to your meetings and showing Aloha and showing other customers with retail stores and selling pools the products and went from there. So it's been a growing business for about 9-10 years now. So it's very exciting, very fun.
John and I were talking the other day about we've been actually doing a lot of videos to try to be informative to customers, would-be customers, potential customers. And one of the myths that we've kind of tried to debunk is the whole thing about chlorine or salt system, because a lot of people will come in and they say, well, my daughter's allergic to chlorine, so I need to go with a salt system. So you hear that all the time, and in an attempt to try to educate people, we've actually done some other videos on that very subject. That no, it's still chlorine. So let's drill down a little bit more and see kind of what you really need. So and so
so you hear that all the time. I don't want chlorine. I want salt, or I don't have chlorine in my pool. I have a salt pool.
Exactly.
And the understanding is not quite there with what that actually means to the water. And so it's a good opportunity to talk to someone who might think they have one thing and they're really using something else. And also, if someone's looking for it with a pool that might have corrosion issues, it's an opportunity to kind of give them what they think salt is with an oxygen pool.
Yeah, and anytime that I'm talking to somebody about a pool and they want a salt system, I always give them that caveat about that salt is corrosive, and I'll say that I'll be the one to bring it up just because, but I also will give it to the salt people, the salt system, that salt is corrosive, and I tell this to customers, and they buy it anyway. So it's still, you know what I mean? It's still a product that works. And it kind of goes. People say people will say now sometimes even I have a salt system, and I have that because I don't want my daughter's blonde hair to turn green, or they'll say all this stuff because they don't like chlorine, and they still don't know. So hopefully some of the stuff we're doing is educating people and getting them a little bit more knowledgeable.
I typically try to avoid salt systems myself because of my high blood pressure, and I avoid sodium intake.
Okay.
I'm just
he's comic relief over here.
Drink the water.
Yeah. All the comedians out of work, and here's this guy trying to be funny, right? So, but so tell us a little bit more about how you're combining all these ingredients, because it's pretty fascinating, really. I mean, and the thing is we've got customers on it, and it works. I'll say that before you go into it, you just got to know this works. So go ahead.
Yeah, we've been doing it for a little while now. So, we worked out all the little kinks and the nuances and make sure it works for pretty much anyone who tries it. So, So it's a combination of a device on the equipment running with chemicals used weekly on top of it. So, it uses this little corona discharge ozone generator. So this installs on the equipment and runs with the water running through it. So it plugs into an outlet, so it's powered up when it's plugged in. The water passes through this manifold, and as the water passes through, you actually control your venturi. So you're actually going to monitor your water flow through it. You put a little pressure on your handle here with the water going, and you start to pick up ozone as the water passes through here. So it runs automatically. It's very low voltage. You don't see any changes in your electrical consumption. We ask people to run at least 12 hours a day. Longer is better. So if 2-speed or variable speed pumps are perfect for something like this. But it's an ozone gas. And so ozone is made from oxygen in the air. And most everyone has had a old copier or train set. And when those things are running, you smell that little electrical smell. That's ozone. And so what we're doing is we're creating a little spark inside this unit and then injecting that spark or that ozone air into the water. And it's a really powerful oxidizer. And so the actual chemistry behind ozone is that if you take oxygen in the air, which is O2, you recreate that little spark, it actually splits the O2 and then it makes it into an O3. So the O3 is the ozone and that's what's injected in the gas. Well, it's really unstable. It wants to revert back to O2. And as it reverts, it gives that O1 over to anything it comes in contact with. So it oxidizes. That's the process of reducing contaminants or killing bacteria or killing algae, is giving that extra oxygen up. It oxidizes whatever it comes in contact with, and then it reverts back to regular oxygen. And so it's basically taking the air that we're breathing, everything around us, it's creating a reaction. It's using that reaction to make contact with whatever's in your water. You don't want it to be in the water. And then when it's done with the reaction, as it does its job, it reverts right back to oxygen. And so it's, it's very clean. There's no residuals. There's no smells. It's running automatically. Powering it up, you plug it into an outlet, or if you have an electrician, you can have this wired into the back of the pump. And so it's very easy to install. You won't notice any other electrical costs with it. Right. There's a little green light on the bottom of this. So a little green light on the bottom tells you everything's powered up as it should, and little bubbles for the return. That's all you look for to make sure it's running. So it's 1.5 inch plumbing, so it installs right after your last piece of equipment, and you'll see little bubbles going through the return whenever it's running.
So I'm setting you up for this. So does ozone ever get created in nature?
Yeah, for sure. So if most of the what people are aware of in nature is thunderstorms. Right. And so if you've ever been outside and the thunderstorms come in and you have that little smell of almost like electricity, that is from that's the same process. That thunderstorms, that a lightning storm is creating that ozone in nature. So it's a very natural process that we see everywhere.
Now, the obvious question is, of course, for those of us that grew up in the 70s and 80s, we heard all about how the ozone layer was dying and we're deteriorating it. We're killing it. How does this? Is it the same thing? When you say ozone, it's basically the same exact.
It's the same element. It's just a different, when the ozone in the ozone layer, that's created by nature, and that's actually it's stable up in the atmosphere. This is because it's so close to Earth, and it's because of the reactions. It doesn't inflect or doesn't go up into the ozone layer. So it's a kind of a different scenario when we're using it in this application.
And it sounds like too when it's in this application, it's pretty much killing something or is sacrificing itself to something in the water, which is helping to, would you say it's always shocking the water, or how would you describe that again?
It's constantly oxidizing. So so it's constantly shocking. It's using or creating the same reaction you would have by using any kind of shock that you would throw in by hand. So any kind of chemical shock is just constantly adding that to the water.
To give you an idea, I'm just a dumb consumer. I don't know much about, I don't come from the pool industry. Right. So, I come from media and marketing and all that. So, my questions are one that from a pool owner, but just one that's not involved in the industry, where that would come from. I was looking on your website, and one of the things I noticed was to explain your product, it said something about organic cells and how it attaches to them and then destroys them. So the cells of organic matter in the pool are things that are there. And help me understand that as just a dumb guy.
So the process of oxidation can happen with organic or inorganic materials. And so the O3 that wants to revert back to O2, when it gives that extra oxygen away, what it will actually oxidize is the cell itself. So a cell that has a membrane or the outside coatings, or bacteria or viruses or cryptosporidia, that oxidation will puncture any kind of living organism and then kill it. So it actually kills what it comes in contact with. And so any kind of virus that's introduced through humans swimming in the water or birds swimming by and going to the bathroom, all of those contaminants will be killed when it comes in contact with ozone. So correct, you are correct in that.
But if my cells are organic, see, this is where the dumb part comes in. If my cells are organic, how does it affect me, my skin, my cells? What is happening to us? Does it have any kind of effect on our bodies?
It's not that aggressive. No, it's not that aggressive. It's not in such concentrations where your living cells on your skin would be impacted. If you had loose skin or skins that come off while you're swimming, yes, it would oxidize that. But it's not so concentrated in the water. You're looking at 10 parts per million of the concentration of this, that it wouldn't have any effect on your living cells.
I'm not coming out with superpowers.
No, it's not going to oxidize your skin cells.
Yeah. And if there's one thing about ozone that I've always known, it's been an accepted form of sanitizing, but it's always had to have backup, just like a lot of things out there.
Yeah.
And there's always has to be.
Right.
Would you call it a residual sanitizer or residual? And ozone has it's ready to go back to being 01. I think that's what you said, and so it's constantly. I've always heard it's got a half-life of 20 minutes. So
right, so it's quick. Yeah, so it's quick. So I mean, actually, when it enters the water and does its job, a lot of it's happening in the plumbing or as it's running to the pool. So there isn't a ton of dissolved ozone in your pool when you're swimming in it. So that's what's always needed in addition to ozone. That's why ozone alone is not enough to keep your pool clean. And so the part that I think is kind of unique to oxygen is that we put together a chemical program to use with the ozone. And so if someone has an ozone on a hot tub or running on their pool, they're generally need other products to use in addition to the ozone. And so that's kind of how I position this as a program as opposed to just a device. And so,
well, and historically, if I might, while you grab that, historically, every ozone from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and today, typically we use a chlorine backup as a residual. They'll lower the amount of chlorine in the water, and there will be a small chlorine residual, which is still chlorine. So it's just less chlorine. But your system is quite different and quite unique.
Correct. Yeah, but we still need some stuff in the water besides the ozone. And so what we did was we created chemicals that are non-chlorine to use with the ozone running. So there's two products we use weekly. Now this is a granular blend of a product we call Formula O. And in here is another oxidizer, so non-chlorine shock. There's sequestering agent for stain and scale, clarifiers to keep the water crystal clear and polished and looking great, and then copper, which is an algicide. And so this is used 1 pound per 10,000 gallons once a week on top of the surface of the pool. So, we sell a lot for like 15,000 gallons pools, which is 1.5 pounds once a week. And a half-pound scoop means it's 3 scoops once a week. Right. And so with the ozone running at least 12 hours a day, use 1 pound per 10,000 gallons once a week of this. And then in addition, the other product that would be used is an additional peroxide. And so you're keeping your residual of peroxide in the water. And so this is used 1 quart per 10,000 gallons once a week as well. And so the combination of all of these is what gives you the residual, what keeps something in the water for when you're swimming, so there's no bather-to-bather cross-contamination. And so again, ozone alone is not enough. These chemicals alone are not enough. But when you run it all together and you have a program with it, then everything's clean in the water. So that's the combination of everything.
And the thing about it is that you end up with a clean pool that is some very healthy and safe water. There's no bleaching from chlorine. There's no negative effects of any negative effect you've ever heard of chlorine. It does not exist. Fair to say. No chlorine. Just those 3 elements.
Are there any cautions at all? Is there any? I noticed that you said hypoallergenic water. Are there any reactions for people to worry about at all that you know of?
The only So there is a little copper in the water, so that's in your algicide, and so you got to make sure your copper levels don't get too high. If your pH, if you're not paying attention to your balance, of course, that's going to be something that may irritate skin. If your pH is too low, it gets acidic. But in terms of these products in the water, I mean, for the most part, if you're running it properly, they're not going to have any adverse reactions in the water. I know we do recommend that you handle the chemicals properly. This peroxide is a 27% hydrogen peroxide, whereas what you buy in your store for cuts, like if you go to the pharmacy to get something to clean out a cut, that's like a 3%. So this is an industrial strength pool version,
Right.
and so the only concerns would be handling the products outside of the water.
Right.
But that's
You don't want to gargle that.
You don't want to gargle that. It's not for brushing your teeth, But the same could be said with chlorine as well. You don't want to handle those.
Don't want to gargle chlorine.
Yeah. So
yeah, and the peroxide like that has been used in the industry in pools for since I was an owner. I was for 30-something years. So
for sure,
it's a widely accepted.
It's a common product.
So the one question that I have is almost kind of simple. This is a pretty streamlined system. Why in the world doesn't everybody have that? Why isn't everybody using oxygen?
So again, we kind of have a niche with people who don't want chlorine and people who are looking at salt but have corrosion issues. And so I kind of found a niche where most of my pools are above ground pools, smaller pools, stuff like that. And so we've done very, very well. I mean, we've grown significantly over the last few years, but there are customers who still want salt. There's customers who, I've grown up with chlorine and I have no problem with it. So,
Right.
Everyone has their own flavor for what they like or what they're used to. And so, we sell a lot with new pools. We sell a lot with people who are, who have been to public pools and have a real adverse, attitude towards chlorine. And so I'm not for every pool. Like, people have different,
Right.
attitudes on what they like. Some like fiberglass pools, some like gunite pools, some like above ground pools,
Right.
some like the splash around pools that they take down at the end of the year. And so, I've kind of have a unique base of customers for my product.
How do the costs compare to chlorine and salt and everything?
So it's a good question, because when I first came out, I was a little bit more than chlorine because my products were unique. I was less than salt generally, but I have a yearly cost because you have to keep using the chemicals. Now, COVID was good to me in that everyone else had a huge price increase over the last few years, and I haven't had much of a price increase. And so I used to be about 20% more a year to run than chlorine alone. I'm about the same now for yearly costs to run an oxygen pool. So if you look at what you're going to spend a year on the Formula O and peroxide, it's right in line with what people would spend with regular chlorine pools.
Nice.
The salt systems have gone up significantly now. And I don't know, Brad, if you've seen much recently with the price increases for the salt systems, but the coatings and the metals that are used in salt systems, the price costs have gone up significantly recently. And I'm hearing it's because of other uses for those metals. But,
Right.
the salt system sells for pools, say 15,000 gallons, I think they're going up another 50% this year. So the difference between salt though and me is, my startup cost for a generator and formula, retails are, I think you guys are selling for $450.
Mm-hmm.
The salt systems usually cost for beginners, please correct me if I'm wrong, but like $1,500 to $2,000 for a starter
Depending on the
system
ones,
for
but
that.
that's right. Yeah, and even higher in some cases. Yeah.
We have larger systems as well, so for sure. So I'm kind of, I would say, pool, for basic chlorine, I'm about the same price. For salt systems, I'm less on the upfront, but you're going to be spending a little bit per year to keep up with this.
Yeah, and full disclosure, we sell the Oxygen brand, and we sell salt system, and we have several different ways. There's several different ways to care for a pool, and this is one of them. But I've always thought this was a unique product line with zero chlorine, because that just any system. If you have there's copper based system, some people call them low salt systems, where there's a copper anode that feeds traces of copper in the water to keep and there's UV, and I know there's others, but every system always has to have some sort of residual backup, and they're all chlorine backup. And this is probably the only one that I can think of that uses something an electronic technology and that you also find that water treatment plants use as a for instance that
industrial
that does not utilize chlorine to some extent. So I've always thought that was a fascinating niche, and I'm real proud to say I know you, and we try to make these podcasts informative and not biased. It's hard for me to be a little bit not biased on that product because I just think I think you've done a good job. I'm real proud of you for that. And Dave, you have another product or two that goes along with this, or people with chlorine pools could use, right?
Right. So over the years of starting Oxygen and growing Oxygen, I've gone from my core business and as I started, I was using contractors to help me manufacture products. And so over the last, 6 years, I bought all the equipment and the manufacturing to do my own products, which is how I started. And then I've grown from there to add products beyond just the Oxygen,
right.
pool program. And so, I've added actually, I've entered these are scented shocks, and so what I've done is I combined non-chlorine shock, which is potassium monopersulfate, with fragrances on top of it, and we do it for pools and spas. And so this is a combination of a chemical and an aromatherapy all in one. And so we call this Pure and Simple, and we have 6 different fragrances on it. And our recommendation is when you open up your hot tub that's been sitting for a little while, it's usually got a little funk to it. It's got a chemical smell to it or a little musty smell to it. And so as opposed to just adding a fragrance, which just masks what you're getting into, you got a capful of the fragrance non-chlorine shock, and it oxidizes, it cleans the water. If you have combined chlorine, which is what you smell when you have chlorine smells, it'll break that down into free chlorine as well. So it's more effective for keeping your water clean. And then it adds a fragrance on top of it. And so because of where we started and because of the capacity I've added over the years and, growing from where I started, I've added other products, which is this one. And so this is for spas. And I also have this for pools. And on the pool side, we use a non-chlorine shock, and this is a lemon verbena, which is a mosquito repellent. So for swimming pools, you have, again, you're gonna go out in the evening, you're gonna worry about mosquitoes biting you as you get in the water. You add a 1 pound per 10,000 of this non-chlorine shock, and it does the same thing as I just mentioned in that it frees up chlorine, it gets rid of any kind of funky smell to the water, it cleans the water, it's an oxidizing shock, and then it smells like lemongrass or lemon verbena when you're in the water. And so as you're swimming, you got an aroma that keeps the mosquitoes away from the pool. And so I've added those over the years too.
Yeah, I mean, and I have to tell you, I have not used this personally. We brought some in last year and didn't do a good job of getting the word out. So this year we're going to get the word out. Hopefully this helps to get the word out on that because. And have you done it? I mean, have you proven that it really helps? Because the last time we talked about it, it was like it doesn't last all summer. It only lasts for how long?
It lasts about 4 hours. And so it's not going to add it in a pool, and you're never going to have mosquitoes in your backyard. You add it and then you swim with it, and it smells nice while in your water. You're in a lemongrass fragrance as you're swimming.
I mean, if it'll keep mosquitoes off it, I want to rub it all over me.
Well, don't sprinkle it on your grass because it may oxidize your grass. But and if you're having a barbecue, it may not keep the mosquitoes away from the far side of the lawn. But while you're in the pool, you're not going to be getting bit. And I've done it with my own kids in my own pool. My daughter was in the water, and she got a couple of bug bites on her shoulder. And so while she was in, I added a little bit, and sure enough, we were clean for mosquitoes from there on out.
Yeah, I just think that's fascinating because we can. As we're sitting around the house, or if we're going swimming, and the mom and dad are watching the kids swim, and they get a mosquito bite or two, it's one thing. But if you're entertaining, if you have people over, and it gets on into the evening when the mosquitoes start getting a lot more intense, then you just throw that shock in, which you're probably going to need to do. You need to shock your pool
with all the kids.
Anyway. Yeah, so I mean, it's win-win everywhere because it smells great. The neighbors are going to say like, "Hey, it smells great out here," and then and then you can say, "You notice the mosquitoes aren't biting," So so that I've always or since you came out with that, I say always, I guess last year or so, thought, well, that's a really good idea. And this year, I promise you, I'm going to bring it front and center to all of our customers. So
it's a little education process.
Yeah,
everyone needs to know about it. And I'm adding capacity. I'm adding. So I mean, most people are used to the 1 pound bags of shock as opposed to jars and pails. And so I have in process of installing a machine to make 1 pound bags. So you'll have it in the case and better displays over the next year or so.
Yeah. Got anything for Dan there? Any questions for clarification on anything there, Mr. John?
I think I've bothered him with all my crazy questions enough, that I can think of. So unless there's anything else that you can think of.
Dan, anything, any plug you want to give for any of your products or anybody out there that's looking to,
Yeah, you can check out our website, oxygenpools.com. And then we also have Oxygen Water Products, which has some other products on there as well. And so, you can check out our website. We got more information. You got dealer locators where people can find stores. If they're not in the Aloha market, I have dealers throughout the whole country.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is a fun business we're in. I'm really glad that I, out of college with my father, got into the pool business as opposed to selling something like washing machines, because it is pretty good. It is pretty fun.
Well, and you've done an excellent job getting out there and beating the trails. And so you're in Atlantic City right now. Where you going next? Where's the next show?
So there's a few more Northeast shows. So there's a couple in Delaware and Massachusetts. There's Florida shows as well. So, my whole next couple of months are scheduled out, and, my office is down in Florida too. So I go down there quite a bit. So it's depends on the week, depends on where I am.
Right.
Well, I'll be somewhere else besides my home every week for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. And I know you travel a lot and, but you're making that living for your family and it sounds like everything's going great.
Yeah, having a good time.
Good, man. I appreciate you doing this.
Thanks, Brad.
It means a lot to me, or your friendship, and going to, being on the front lines with you and bringing your product to the customers. I think it's good for people, and I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us, educate us a little bit.
My pleasure.
And let's do it again.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Dan.
Appreciate you guys.
All right,
thanks, Sean.
We'll catch you later.
Okay.
And what do you say, John?
Well, I would say, what do we say? Dive safely, everyone.
There you go. All right. See you, Dan. Appreciate you.
See you guys. Bye.